Don't worry, get cooking.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Don't worry, get cooking. As you can see, I'm in a new kitchen. We came back from London to Rome and we're going to stay in Italy for a couple of months. And today from this new kitchen, I'll show you one of the most famous recipes in the world, meatballs. I'm going to be making them in the traditional Italian way, slow cooked in tomato sauce, and I'm not going to be serving them with spaghetti. In any case, this recipe is really easy, it's super quick, and it serves so many people. So now let's get cooking and prepping our ingredients. So to make meatballs, you'll need 600 grams of minced meat, a mix of pork and beef, 2 tablespoons of grated parmesan, 2 eggs, 30 grams of bread, just this part, 1 onion, 1 whole bottle of tomato sauce, 20 milliliters of milk, and some parsley. So there's 2 parts to making meatballs. The first is making the meat and mixing it with the parmesan, the eggs, and the breadcrumbs. And the second part is making the tomato sauce. So let's start by making the tomato sauce by roughly chopping an onion. So moving on to the meatballs, the first step to make meatballs is to cut 2 slices of bread and remove the crust around. The best bread to use is a 1 or 2 day old bread because it will be a bit firmer and will absorb the milk better. Now let's transfer our bread to a bowl and add approximately 20 milliliters of milk. And set it aside for 10 to 15 minutes. So let's start our tomato sauce by adding some olive oil to a small pot. After adding the oil and heating it for 30 seconds, we add our onions in and our parsley. Now we let our onions and parsley sizzle for 2 minutes and then we'll add our tomato sauce in. It's a super simple tomato sauce because our meatballs are already very flavorful, so we want to keep the tomato sauce very simple. Okay, now that the onions have softened a little bit after 2 or 3, maximum 3 minutes, we're going to add in our tomato sauce. I used 1 whole bottle of passata di pomodoro. We mix everything together and add quite a bit of salt. Let's start baking our meatballs by adding the minced meat in a big bowl and adding 2 eggs. Next step, we transfer our breadcrumbs, which were in milk for 10 minutes, to some kitchen paper. You can do them a little bit at a time. And we squeeze the milk out of them and add them to our meat. Then we add 2 tablespoons of grated parmesan. And I didn't show you this in the ingredients, but if you'd like, you can add 1 tablespoon of oregano, but it's not necessary. Then we add salt, lots of salt. We want to season the meat now rather than when it's cooking. So add abundant salt and lots of pepper. So now the most important part of the recipe is to get down and dirty with your hands and really mix all of these ingredients together. incorporated all the ingredients like this, we can go on to shaping our meatballs. Now let's start shaping our meatballs. We take enough meat to be as big as the palm of your hand, and then make a circular movement in your hand to form a ball. The cooking of our meatballs. Let's add oil to a pan and let it heat a lot. My heat is currently on 8, and we want it to almost start smoking before we add our meatballs. So a way to check if your oil is hot enough is that you're just gonna put a meatball on top of it and listen if it starts sizzling. In this case it does, so we can start adding our meatballs in. We want the heat to be really high because at the beginning we want our meatballs to form a small crust around them and then to slowly cook in the tomato sauce. After 1 minute on very high heat, we want to flip them around. As you can see, they formed a brown crust on one side, and we want the same on the other side. After 30 seconds on the other side, we're going to add our tomato sauce in. We want the tomato sauce to completely cover the meatballs, like this. So now let's have the meatball cook approximately 2 minutes on high heat with the tomato sauce. And then we'll lower the heat and let them cook for 10 to 15 minutes. Halfway through the cooking, let's turn them around. So after 15 minutes, our meatballs are ready. I'm gonna sprinkle some more oregano on top. And by now you know that I love basil, so I'm gonna add some basil all over. Voila! Thank you so much for following my recipe for polpette with tomato sauce. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel and leave me a thumbs up. For more delicious recipes, follow me on Instagram at don'tworrygetcooking, where I post one recipe. I'll see you next Sunday, and as always,